Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Product Checklist, the podcast where we explore the methodologies, frameworks, and real world strategies that drive successful product management and project development in the Web3 space. Today, we are joined by Maxence Perray, a tokenomics expert and entrepreneur who has been at the forefront of economic modeling and product strategy in Web3. His background: blockchain analyst, market maker, and co-founder of one of Europe's leading tokenomics consulting firms. During his career, Maxence has worked with major projects including the Sandbox, Optimism, Chiliz, and ApeSwap. He has been actively solving a big challenge in Web3 product development: how to design sustainable token economics that align user incentivize with long-term product success. In today's conversation, we will discover Maxence's methodology for building economically sustainable Web3 product and explore how tokenomics should influence product architecture from day one. Whether you're building DeFi protocols, game ecosystem, or any Web3 product with token mechanics, today's episode will give you with approach from someone who has successfully designed and implemented tokenomics for some of the most successful projects in the ecosystem. Maxence, welcome to the Product Checklist, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Devin, for your invitation.
Please, can you give us a quick presentation about you and what you do actually?
I think you well describe a little bit of my pace and what I have done previously. Something I want to mention is we are trying to design as much as we can, especially on the economic design for project we work with. But unfortunately, in our field, we work with uncertainty. So we are trying to reduce this uncertainty and do as much as we can to reduce it, but we can't predict the future, because if I can predict the future and the economical future, I will be billionaire. And unfortunately, I'm not actually. So it's much more about reducing uncertainty and try to focus on the point that we know we can leverage in an economical way. For the second question, well, what I do actually I'm working on some meta stablecoin project. So that's something I don't want to talk a lot for now, because it's just the beginning. But I think that can be something really interesting, especially for the stablecoin world, because I have in mind, like, actually we have 250 stablecoin in the ecosystem, and I think that we can have a multiplication of the number of stablecoin project by 10. So the number of stablecoin project can really grow, and I think that's something on that can be something useful for this ecosystem or this part of the ecosystem.
Okay, nice. What was the pivotal moment in your life that make you said, I want to be in the blockchain?
I think when I was pretty young, I made blockchain and especially Bitcoin because I want to have some Kama. So Kama is a virtual money of a video game. Name is Dofus. And so that was, I think, in 2014. And at this period of my life, I want to work for the DGSE, so the interior government ecosystem. So I was do some different stuff in the dark web, in this part of the web. And I was like, okay, really interesting. So that was the first conversation, if I can say that, with this ecosystem. But I really don't care about. I was really young, so I don't care nothing about like decentralization, transparency, etc. So that was my first behavior for that. And after that was in 2017, 18, and I was starting to do a lot of different stuff, and I was learning especially algorithmic trading. And at this period, I publish, especially on Discord, some algorithm trading, some liquidity monitoring system on not on chain, off chain for sex. And so that was the beginning of my deep dive in this field. First, I think that was really not for the ecosystem. That was just for money because I was like, I have like 17, 18 years old, and so I was younger. I want to be rich, and I think that can be like the El Dorado. So firstly, that was why I go in Web3, and I think like 90% of people go for money at the beginning. Maybe they tell other stories, but the truth is we are here for money, and we shouldn't blame ourselves for that because based on the money, we can build a lot of different things, and that's a really strong leverage for life, but also for what we can accomplish with.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I totally agree with you. Money is never a goal, it's never an end goal, but it's a tool to help us
Yeah,
accomplish
absolutely.
what we want to do. Actually, let's talk a little bit about project management. How will you explain the intersection of tokenomics and project management to someone completely new to both concepts?
Yeah. So first, let's separate and make the definition of each one. So tokenomics is basically the alignment between the protocol, the token, and also a business model, and how you do and calibrate all these different things to try to focus on an objective function, so on a goal, and try to leverage it as much as you can and try to mitigate all the different uncertainty to find an equilibrium on the economic side. So that's why for the tokenomics, and for product is okay, how we can provide all I have defined previously in an easy way for the founders and people who want to build something in the Web3, because in Web3 it's really difficult because a lot of people forget one thing is, yeah, we are in Web3, we are a Web3 company, but before being a Web3 company, we are a company. And what is the goal of a company is solve a problem and generate revenue based on solving this problem. So a lot of people forget it and just want to raise money, and after raise money, sell token. But I think that's not the end point. That's not the end game. Is much more about, okay, I have a token that allow me to have a value flow circulation in my ecosystem, that allow me to have some liquidity in my ecosystem. Okay, how I do it? What do I do with that? And what do I want to do with this amount of liquidity? And is that just speculation, or is that something much more interesting for my project and my protocol? And you can be a Web3 protocol without a token. And that's something really important. You can be in Web3 without a token. A token isn't something that you must do. Just something, if you want to raise money, that can be interesting to have a token. But I think it's not the final point. It's much more about what do you do with the token, and you need to be careful about if you have a token not is not something too heavy for you and your project, and because some projects are really cool, but the token didn't allow them to leverage their own project because of the done only of their token.
I think you mentioned a good point, actually. You can have a Web3 project without tokens, and we have seen some project without tokens and building the tokens just after. How does starting with economic design change the entire project development process compared to teams that build features first and add the token later?
I think in the ecosystem, first in the ecosystem, we have a lot of different type of entrepreneurs. We have a lot of first founders in the ecosystem, and it's just about like how do you made a company. Like if you made some not first founder, or that can be first done, but it's just a question of probability of being able to do that. But most of non-first founder just understand that they need to generate money, they need to generate some engagement, they need to generate a community, and they need to align the utilization of their protocol. Like an example for DeFi project, why Morpho work? They are first founder in that, but they understand that they need to provide an ecosystem, they need to provide something that is useful for the ecosystem and is different than other. People can say, oh, it's the same thing as Ave, but yeah, but in case if you really are deep in the ecosystem and just not lend and borrow, is much more different, and that allow you to do a lot of different things, and they don't have the same interoperability. They don't have the same risk assessment for your liquidation threshold. They don't have the same calculation, so that allow you to do different DeFi strategy, but it's not something like for just common things, and is something much more, I think, complex in general, but that's something that's really, really helpful for a lot of them. And the concentration of only one big player isn't something that we want, especially in the decentralization world. That's why I think Morpho do really good things. Just think about products, think about how they can allow people to match lending and borrowing, because one of the biggest issue when you want to do a lending borrowing platform is like game theory. If you have a lender but no borrower, so you will pay zero yield to the lender, so you will have like really tight liquidity on that because people aren't paid. And for borrowers, if you don't have any lender, so if you don't have liquidity, so you can't borrow, so you can't use the platform. So anyway, if you play some anyway, if you borrow, um, and at this point is okay, how can we manage that? And it's tokenomics, but also that it's product reflection is okay. We have two type of economical agents. They don't have the same behavior, but they have the same needs. So liquidity and yield. And at the end is how can I provide this alignment between both parts for me? And I think they find the answer is just incentive the beginning of a pool. And when you have a trigger and you have like critical adoption, people like can this pool can work by their own in an organic way, and so you stop the incentivization, and the pool will grow, will work, will live by themselves.
Okay, thank you for this answer. And for you, what are the most critical project decisions that teams get wrong when they don't understand market dynamics, and how can you help them to design better?
Wow, strong question. I think we need to define a little bit because Web3 is really large, and if we talk about a DeFi platform like a DEX, or if we talk for gaming protocol, they really don't have the same needs, and they really don't have the same issue. So maybe we can precise a little bit.
Let's go on the DeFi platform for
Okay.
the DeFi.
Okay. So for DEX, for example, like I think for me is focus on TVL for DEX and not focus on capital efficiency. A lot of the volume are actually on RFQ, so in OTC in general. So a lot of volume, I think like more than 40% of the actual volume on chain, like RFQ, etc. The liquidity efficiency on the DEX less like that's 70%. So 70% of the actual liquidity isn't efficient. I think at least much more, but I don't have made the calculation recently, so I don't want to put any wrong idea. But the capital efficiency is really bad actually. For the rest of the actual volume, most of the volume are not directly by the DEX. They are powered by aggregators like 1inch, etc. And as most of the volume are provided by aggregators, you need to understand, okay, my aggregators, how do they calculate and make the redirection, and why do they use my pool and not another one? And that can be like, for example, you want to provide the transaction between like ETH and USD. You have maybe like 30% in Uniswap, 30% on Tena, 30% on ApeSwap if we stay on BNB, on the BSC, and 10% on Newbie. So, okay, we have this repartition, but how do they calculate that? And they calculate it by liquidity efficiency and the minimization of the slippage for your position and the transaction. So even if you are a little DEX, yeah, you can focus on TVL. You can definitely focus on TVL, and the growth of your TVL allow you to have a better it's much more easier to have some collaboration and to make some collaboration or to do something because you think you will have more volume, but it's not at least the case finally. And if you do some capital efficiency in terms of product, a lot of projects I've tried to like Gamma, Ichi, even if some LPs use Panoptic, etc., is Panoptic is V3 LP with option. So you can use option and have some curve based on what you do and trying to be delta neutral, but you have the impermanent loss and you need to manage it in a really important way. But they don't find an ALM. So ALM is active liquidity manager, and active liquidity money market for market making isn't something that's really efficient actually. So have a liquidity efficiency platform and have a DEX with a much more liquid effectiveness is something that will be allow them to have more redistribution and more volume based on the aggregators. So the revenue they will provide for them and for their LPs will be much more important. So the TVL, I think, isn't the focus, but the metrics is much more capital efficiency because that's how you manage to increase your revenue for the DEX and how you manage to increase after the TVL, because as much as you generate some revenue, you can buy back and provide some emission. So you provide more rewards, and if you provide more yields, you will have some mercenaries LP who go in your platform, so provide some TVL, and that can be a pretty positive economic flywheel. And so I think for me, and that's a little bit about the parrot metrics. I go a little bit more in the future. I go too much in the future, but I think for me that's something in the market or something do wrong, and I have my things about that. For other, especially for example in gaming industry, really not the best, and other guys as Wodrick. So Wodrick McKinley is another token engineer is much more better than me on this aspect.
Okay, thank you for this answer. And looking at the current market right now, what do you see as the biggest product opportunities in tokenomics driven application? And where are the team still making fundamental economic design mistakes?
I think we might return to the basic. It's just what do you do? Is what's your company do? How do your company generate some revenue? And I think that's the end. It's just how do you generate some revenue? And if you are on table to show me how you generate revenue and what should be the adoption to generate revenue, what should be the utilization should be to generate some revenue, and how many that can be, I think okay, you just need to do more homework. But at the end, it's just as I told it in the beginning, alignment between token, protocol, and also at the end, business model. How do you generate revenue and how your company can do something and can generate revenue at the end? Or that can be zero, that can be break even because you provide and at the beginning you can be not sustainable. So at the beginning you provide a lot of yield, a lot of reward because you want to bootstrap your community and you want to provide a lot of yield to increase the adoption, and after the adoption you will use the flywheel. So you can do that, and it's not because you're not sustainable at the beginning that then it's something bad, but you need to understand what you do in a really precise way, and especially on the token part, because I think a lot of people have a lack, and a lot of people don't care about how projects and how liquidity works, how project works, how do they generate some revenue, and why is this token can be valuable based on the utilization of this revenue, and how this token is something that drive the economic value for the protocol at the end.
Okay, and in your opinion, why are they doing it like this? Why they don't put much effort to have a better understanding of all this part first before doing the project?
First, lack of content. We lot of we don't have we have some content, but he is much more for engineer and not for founders. And I think so they can't dive, because if they don't have the background, that's something that can be really difficult for them to go in. And so have something like much more easier to dive in. And at the end is just the awareness, because for most of people, tokenomics is just like the cheese, the allocation, the supply, and that's it. But is much more than that. Is the that can be the vesting, the lock, so that will be the token unlock, and all that is the token metrics, the token design. So how do you design all the economical value flow in your ecosystem? How do you do a flywheel? And after that, token engineering. So that's for pretty good project. For token engineering is the calibration of all these parameters. Like, for example, calibration of your fees, calibration of your slash, calibration of your incentive, calibration of your liquidity, because I think liquidity is part of tokenomics, and I think market makers can be part of the tokenomics. And at the end, if company internalize token engineer, they should really work closely with market maker, because for incentive, calibration of incentive, and working with market maker to try to increase the liquidity depth, or try to think about, okay, how I can manage to have 2% market depth, much more important, so I can absorb some reward I will provide, but this reward we will have a compensation in like 2 months, because we think that the adoption increase because of this reward, etc., etc. So they should really work much more closely. They should internalize token engineer, designer at the end in much companies. So it's a lack of content, good content, and the second is just awareness. And because we have a lack of content, they can't have on their eyes some. It's difficult to increase the awareness because of a lack of content.
Okay, thanks. So let's say now there was a company just hire a product manager. So we've done the design and now we are about to do the experiment. How do you run project experiment when token economics can have delay or unexpected effects? Meaning, what's your framework for testing tokenomics changes without destabilizing the entire system?
So we are in testnet.
Yes, for example, in testnet.
So I will try to shock my ecosystem. So try to reproduce some economical shock, like for example, a strong sideways sell side. So we will sell a lot, and how people can manage, and what type of behavior I can have based on this selling pressure. And at the other point, for the buying pressure, because high buying pressure amounts can be something that can struggle at least your ecosystem, because if a lot of people have your token and hold it and just do nothing with it, so you can have a scarcity. And a scarcity is like you have not enough liquidity to just have some exchange between protocol, people, holders, users, in general, anyway, their type. And that can be a pretty important problematic. Like in 2021, we have seen some scarcity, and the price grew up, and after go down in a really quick period of time, because he going up based on the scarcity effect. Because if you have not enough liquidity, that's the amount of money you need to push up a token. is really tight. But if you increase the liquidity, so that will be much more difficult, and that will have something like much more balance for sell and buy side. So you talk about metrics. I think for the much more important metrics for a project, so let's say in DeFi, it's not about testnet, because in testnet it's much more about technical aspects. And it's pretty difficult to engage in some protocol user, as we can do in product in general, in a beta test, etc., etc. Something we can do is not testnet, is be in prod, so being in production, but have a staging environment and really talk with your user to understand how you do your product and if your product met with the expectation of your user. And some projects really do it well. I have in mind especially one project is CD Labs. So CD Labs, their goal is to try to provide some organic liquidity. So how do they do it? They reward people to place and provide liquidity for some project. And because they provide some liquidity in some project, the project will have more organic liquidity, and that can be like an health breath. It's really easy for them, and that can put them in a much more positive in a way. And like they talk every day with their user, and what they do is try to measure the amount of liquidity really active without any bad mechanism or bot, etc., etc. And that's a fight they are trying to manage. So I think for have two environments, so staging and production. Talk with your user and let them try in a staging, but that may really depend of the typology of your project, because in fact, product management in Web3 is something really difficult, because if you do shitty things, that can affect the entire ecosystem. And that's why sometimes you need to be really careful about what you do and how you do it. We don't have some common metrics, like we can talk about our average revenue per user, we can talk about TVL, we can talk about volume, we can talk about stickiness, retention, we can talk about, but I don't think like most of people talk about like CAC, so cost of acquisition, the total adoption of if they do a marketing campaign, if they really track it, track the amount of increased people, what is the CAC, what is the revenue, what is the LTV of a user. I don't know if most projects do it. That's something we are trying to do and try to provide, but I don't know if that's something common actually for the ecosystem. So just track your basic product metrics. I think that's something like just can help you just with new metrics of Web3 of Web3 can have.
Okay. And as you said, some projects, they don't really track what they are doing and they have a lack of metrics. And what are the early signals that tell you whether a tokenized product has found a genuine product market fit versus just speculative interest?
I think is the utilization, and utilization in a so utilization and stickiness. It's much more about stickiness, because speculation is that will just be some people who are some entities who just want to go in the project to try to manage to make money or anyway. And if you try to figure out the stickiness, that will be much more a great metrics, because people who have some retention will stay with your project. And if you manage to identify the retention, the stickiness of the project, and after that, the revenue per user, and at the end, the LTV. So I think you have the end game for that, and you can really understand, okay, I have the product market fit because I have some retention, and my project will continue to have a community and an ecosystem.
Okay. About actually the project life cycle, which step of the project life cycle is the most efficient for you, or the one that interests you the most? Is it the discovery phase? Is it the phase you go from 0 to 1? Or is it the phase you go from 1 to 100?
I think because I have made a lot of mistake in this part, that the most important part is the discovery. Is I think I have made all the mistake on the discovery as a product manager on the discovery side. That's why I'm like, okay, I really need to focus on, because delivery, we are really lucky in this ecosystem. The tech guys are freaking amazing. Like, they are brilliant. People want to work, and they can have like 18, and they are like just amazing, and they work in a really amazing way. So I think product delivery is much more to be sure that everything is fine. But for product discovery, is something like people don't want to talk with their users. So talk with your users. Talk with your users. Oh yes, but I don't want to talk to them because I want to sell them something. Yeah, but are you sure that what you want to sell to them is what they want? I don't know. Are you sure about that? And so talk with your users. Oh yeah, that's something pretty strange, etc. Yeah, that can be uncomfortable to talk with some LPs with a million of dollars, etc. But anyway, if what you do solves their problem, they will definitely help you and told you what are their problem. Like people can be afraid because it's a word of money for most of the time. And anyway, like, I have met like people who have like millions and millions dollars, and they are like, "Oh, you have this idea. I don't think it's a good idea because that extra, etc., etc." And others told you, "No, you should much more do that. Let's made some discovery with others, but maybe that's something, it's just an advice, but yeah, for me is that's my problem, and you should talk with other if we have the same problem, etc." So, okay, just listen, talk with other. Do they have the same problem? Yeah. Can I provide something for them? And can I deliver something that resolves this problem? Yes. Okay. So that's for the strategy part. And for the discovery, it's okay. For example, when you do a test with a user, and I don't know, they don't know how to navigate in your application. Is the user is dumb, or is maybe you have made a shitty design? I think is not being too much arrogant and try to think about ourselves how we can do something better. Sometimes just don't listen your user. They are dumb. But other times, just is you, the shitty case. And so you need to take in consideration that you're not the best. And yes, you have constructed the application. So it's pretty normal that you understand perfectly your application. But try to have some empathy, try to think with your users, and try to understand and ask some question. So I see it's difficult for you to navigate in the application. Can you tell me more about that? Oh, it's because I don't understand the different button and what I need to do. Yeah, because in general, in Web3, that may depend to which type of people you focus on. If you put someone in a DEX for the first time, like your mother or some stuff like that, if you do the KFC, the click, the button, the withdraw, if you send funds to a bank account, to your bank account, to a crypto, etc., etc., at least you have like 25 steps. 25 steps to your bank account money into a DEX. So if you think about the new customer, it's something really difficult. So some really cool application try to provide on-off ramp in an easy way for a customer with account abstraction, etc., etc. Yes, there are some good product, but in general, if people don't understand what you do, people will just tell you, but read our documentation. Yes, okay, I've read your documentation, but I need to read every project documentation to understand what you do and how I should do. Um, how should I do have an interaction with you and your project? I don't know. Maybe we should learn how to reduce the learning curve of the utilization of ecosystem and platforms in general, or may just people we will do all that in backend, and as internet do, we don't care about servers. Like I think like 1% of people like trying to host something in local because no one care about have something in local. They will just have something like easy for them. So how we can manage to have a balance between what blockchain means to so decentralization, transparency, and responsibility. And why I say responsibility is because it's your own money, is money, and anyone can tell you what you do with that is totally free, and that's something who have a lot of value. Is that's your own responsibility. All you will do is your responsibility. But should we manage to protect them a little bit, or should we just um, let them be more aware and take all the responsibility in a positive or in a negative matter, in a negative way? And I think that's the point, and that's something we need to think about, is should we send more responsibility to people, or should we try to provide them something more easy? So that's the point. I don't have the correct answer for that, but something I think is a really cool balance is DEX, perp DEX, like GMX, Hyperliquid, or DYDX, is they're trying to provide sex experiences with a DEX backend. And I think that's maybe the point at the end is have something really easy to use, but with the same property as blockchain and decentralization can apport.
Hmm. Okay. During this phase, actually, so you talk about what people should do, and once again, as product manager, we need metrics. So, what is the one metric that for you is the one that you will check all the time during the discovery phase? And do you also have, I would say, guardrail metrics that telling you, okay, I'm going in the wrong way. I should take care. I mean, I should be careful about this phase.
So the first is the positive one, and the second is a negative one.
Yes, we can say that.
It's a pretty poor resume, but yeah. I think some Web3 performance metric interesting in terms of products, so stickiness, TVL, effectiveness in terms of TVL. So what's my volume based on my TVL? So it's the effective volume, and you can calculate on June especially what's the liquidity efficiency of your project based on the TVL you have. Is not only for DEX, is you have a project, so you have some liquidity pool, and calculate the liquidity efficiency for your project. I think the number of active wallet and number of holder is something really interesting too. And yeah, user retention based on some cohorts. Yes, something really important. I talk a lot about liquidity efficiency, but that means like liquidity depth and the slippage is really important. So that's the first step. So if you have like no liquidity depth, if you have a large slippage, don't think about its liquidity efficiency. But when I talk about liquidity efficiency, it's much more about optimization. Like, don't do a full range, be more concentrated. But if you are not concentrated, you have impermanent loss. So how do you cover it to reduce your financial risk on that? And I think for bad ones, for really bad metrics, you shouldn't follow.
Not about you shouldn't follow. It's the one when it's growing. That means you're going in the wrong way. It's not a bad matrix, but it's a matrix that's showing you and saying, let's have a look because it will be bad in the future if you keep on this track.
Being on Twitter is just like follow your Twitter metrics. It's not because you have a lot of followers that people will use you or will use your protocol. So yes, you can flex in party, but that's it.
Okay. So let's talk about a little bit about the pirate matrix. So as I can understand, I have a guess, but I will let you answer that. What is your favorite part? Is it the acquisition, activation, retention, referral, or revenue?
I think I'm not the best in terms of acquisition. And I think I really need to improve on that. It's much more about retention, revenue, and after referral. But referral can be a part of acquisition. And so it's much more about retention and revenue. And how you can, let's made something, but I think there are all some good insights and it's like they're working together. You can't have a good retention if you don't have any acquisition. You can't provide any revenue if you don't have a good product who activate your user. Yeah, I think it's much more about retention because if you have some stickiness, and that's I think the final end because stickiness mean that people like your product means you will have some referral mean you will have some revenue because if they use it you will increase your revenue. And so just work with someone who are good at acquisition and understand your product and work closely with him and do something like a skyrocket.
Mm. Okay, so now we talk about a good thing that we can look at. Is there, I will say, a silent killer? It's the things that look like success, but actually indicate there is trouble in the project.
Good question. In terms of what? In terms of intern product or in terms of if I'm a user? In terms of what? What is my perspective? So I'm a product manager in this team, and I see this metrics, and I'm like, okay, shit, we have a big problem. I don't know. Actually, like critical metrics that I think for every Web3 project is a token price because unfortunately, if your token price like really go down, that will have really people in general and the ecosystem will have a bad idea of you. They are thinking you're bad. They were thinking the community will hate you because you made them lose money. And so I think that's the token price. And unfortunately, it's token price.
Okay, let's say right now you have a junior project manager and you have to coach him or coach her. So during the phase of retention, what will be your advice to be a good project manager in this phase? If you have to say one advice, what will it be?
Try to think not about you, but about them. What did you provide to them and what is the solution and what is the problem are you trying to solve? So because as much as people suffer from a problem, as much as you can answer this problem, as much you will grow and as much you will generate some revenue. So bigger is the problem, bigger is the solution, but bigger is all after. Problem also.
Yeah. Okay. We are already at the final stage of the episode and we are going to have some questions looking for short answers. Is it okay for you?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. So what is the best product advice you ever got in blockchain?
I think is much more about product management in general, but for me is be empathic. Be empathic and we try to understand their feeling and what does this feeling mean.
What is the worst advice you ever received or you still heard in the Web3?
Think you're the best.
Okay. What
The
is the
market will beat you.
Okay. What is the most underrated project management skill when you're building a product?
That is skill when you're building a product. I think is mind tree. I don't know if it's a word in English, but if you think we like a tree, that's something like for me really interesting. So not focus on a single vertical, but have a pretty horizontal skills.
Okay. In your opinion, what skill differentiate great project manager in blockchain tokenomics from good project manager?
The only one skill
Yes.
I think is ego. A good product manager don't have a really important ego.
And what does he have instead?
They have an important root in themselves. What I mean is they know some things, so they can justify why they think about that, but they don't say it like my last example. They will not say it like you're a dumb user, that's why you don't understand what I do. Is okay. They will try to ask some question. Why? What is your feeling? So in a macro way, what is your feeling? Why can you identify the different issue you live I like actually? And after that, okay, why this point precisely affect you? How do you manage to be better? Do you have some advice for us? How should, for you, if you have like for you the best experience, if you can provide you the best experience, which experience will be, and try to really understand and feel what try to extract the maximum value of people you are talking with.
What is the biggest adoption friction you still see actually in blockchain?
Awareness.
Okay. Well, can you go deeper on this?
We are a tech ecosystem and we don't think for massive adoption. Everyone talk about massive adoption, but we don't think for massive adoption. We think about do experimentation, financial experimentation in ourselves, and we really like them. We are really brilliant to do it. Like I think we are really brilliant in terms of financial optimization, financial thinking, and like do something really far in a lot of different way. But do we think about massive adoption? Do we think about something like useful for the world? I don't know. So maybe it's a lack of awareness for people, or maybe it's a like awareness on our side and to provide something for this massive adoption.
Hmm. As a project manager, what is the first dashboard you open every morning when you are monitoring a tokenized product?
I think it's TradingView. But I think is all the different metric I have mentioned, what's my actual TVL, my growth, and you do a Dune dashboard because in Web3 it's much more difficult as product manager management in general because you need to do something pretty customized. So you do a customized Dune dashboard and every morning you go on this customized dashboard and you try to understand what happened between the last week, etc., etc. And June is really so in terms of granularity, you can do a lot of things. So use June as your main dashboard.
What question did I not ask you that I should have asked you during this episode?
The question you didn't ask me. I don't know. I have not a lot of idea. But we want to focus on product management. And do you think product management is efficient in Web3? Honestly, I don't think so. But I don't know every project. I don't know everyone. So I'm sure we have some really brilliant product manager and product management in the space. But I think for some projects I have seen, they have a really brilliant tech, they are really brilliant marketers, really brilliant commercial, really brilliant engineers, but maybe if they just feel a little bit more about product and they just read like one book, maybe that can be useful for them. Yeah, that can be useful for them.
Okay. And where can our listeners can follow your work? Do you want to share any social networks, project, or resources?
Actually, I want to do a Medium because I have published a lot of different articles on the Medium of Nomics, so the company with Pascal. So if people want to follow a researcher, so Pascal Duval, he's a brilliant researcher on LinkedIn, and on my side, I will put. I think I will build a Medium, or they can go directly on my LinkedIn. But actually, I'm not really active, so I need to manage.
Okay, and last question. Is there anything you actually need in your project? Is there anything we can do for you? Are you looking for someone? I don't know, connection?
If someone in the, I don't, it's pretty specific, is someone about the stablecoin ecosystem in the Cosmos, because I have sent some messages at Noble, Tried, etc. So may they will answer. But yeah, I think a lot of things can be done in the Cosmos ecosystem in terms of stablecoin. So I don't know if some validators or some people who work in this field, I'm interested to be in contact.
Thank you very much, Maxence. Thank you very much for joining us today on the project checklist. Thank you for sharing your insight and expertise. To our listeners, check out the description notes for links to Maxence's work and the resources mentioned in this episode. If you are interested in having deeper product insights such as use case solving and tool stacks, see you in the community member section. Thank you for watching. See you at the next episode. And Maxence, I will leave you the last word for the episode. What do you want to say to the community?
Be better on yourself because you can't control others, and the only one you can control is yourself.
Thank you very much, Maxence. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.